just stop. Here's Ross, the host with today's dose of common sense.
And welcome back, everybody. How are you? Welcome back to Really Just Stop. And today we're going to talk more about the United Healthcare CEO assassination. And that's because some more information is coming out about the killer, Luigi Mangione. And I'm assuming that his last name is pronounced that way. That's the way I would pronounce it. I don't know if he does. But anyhow, that's where we are. But it's been revealed, after people have been doing some digging, that he seems to have had a medical condition that does cause a considerable amount of pain, and that he did have a fairly serious surgery for this thing. So now, whether United Healthcare was involved in this or not, it hasn't been said yet, so I don't know. We don't know if the United Healthcare CEO was targeted simply because he was easy, or if he's directly involved in the negotiations for this surgery and treatment for this condition. So let's take a look at it. We're going to go to share this screen. And another mugshot of the poor guy. And I only say poor guy because, I don't know, it looks like he's been through the ringer. But they've released several photographs of him, and I don't know, he just keeps looking worse and worse in each one, which I guess you could expect, sort of. I don't know. You're in jail. You're probably not having a great time. So the article is on Yahoo Life, got there from Google News, and it's by Natalie Rahal. I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced. I don't know. Luigi Mangione suffered from, get this is quite a word, spondylolisthesis. It's a back condition. Experts say it can cause massive pain. Most back conditions can cause massive pain. I don't know if any of you have had back trouble, but if you have, you can sympathize with that. I've had minor back trouble, and it's still a nightmare. It kind of runs in my family. I don't have a lot of back problems, but my dad and my brother both had to have back surgery at different times. And so I don't know. I don't know how I avoided it, but I do in my older age now that I'm 57. I have some lower back issues, but it's mostly arthritic and some sciatic issues, things like that. So, but, back pain is terrible, and it sucks to live with it. But it appears that he had that condition. And I guess that's being reported because of some things that were posted on his X, formerly known as Twitter, account. His banner image was apparently an X-ray of his condition, and I think it showed plates and screws and all those sorts of things. So people are talking about his condition and how he went surfing, and his condition got worse and all of that. And this is interesting because I've got to get down to it. Delays in treatment are not uncommon. Mangione never mentioned being covered by or angry with United Healthcare specifically in any social media, according to multiple reports. Now, they looked through here and went through all of his social media, what they could, but it's interesting that this doctor talks about the delays in treatment, and that sometimes they'll require that you go to physical therapy and try other forms of treatment before they'll actually approve even just the imaging in order to determine the cause of the problem and come up with a surgical remedy that they can plan for. So I can attest to that myself, and some of you may as well, because I've had a couple of different instances where I had to fight with, and my doctor had to fight with our insurance provider about getting the proper treatment for something that was wrong with me. Um, my favorite was quite a few years ago, and it was the Workers' Comp Bureau in Ohio. I fell at work and I twisted my knee and I tore up my meniscus. Um, they sent me to a clinic, to get evaluated. And it's like where you go when you have a workers' comp claim. So I go there. The doctor checks it out and says, "Oh, your knee is just sprained. Here, let's put some ice on it. It'll be fine. Here's some Motrin." And just a few days later, I went to my doctor, and my doctor touched my knee for about 5 seconds and said, "Oh, your meniscus is torn up. You're going to have surgery." And then when he found out that it was a workers' comp issue, he was like, "I can't touch it because it's in the hands of workers' comp." So I was stuck with that. And this went on for a year of my doctor and another doctor in his office who was board certified for workers' comp sending requests to workers' comp about, "Hey, we need to get an MRI so we can see exactly how much the meniscus is damaged so we can go in and fix it." And workers' comp refused. They said there's no reason to reevaluate the original diagnosis being just a sprained knee. This is a year later. They were still saying I just had a sprained knee. They forced me to go to 12 weeks of physical therapy, which made it worse. And when it came up where I'm complaining to them, we're sending requests. I forget the form name. It's a something 9, C9 or a D9, about requesting further, imaging and stuff like that to figure out exactly what's going on, because I had two doctors saying, obviously it's not a sprain. And in response to that, workers' comp a year later sent me a letter that said, "Since there's been no new diagnosis and no need for a further evaluation of your condition, we're closing your claim." So they refused to actually fix my knee, workers' comp did. And that's the workers' comp here in Ohio. Thank you very much. They suck. They suck hardcore. So anyway, but it was sort of a blessing in disguise, because then my doctor was able to fix me. And believe it or not, in less than 7 days, I was in surgery getting my meniscus repaired. And then everything was fine for a while until I tore it up again. But it's one of those testimonials of how bad things can be. And now, granted, that's workers' comp and not insurance. But I did have a back issue, or what we thought was a back issue. We thought it was a sciatic issue. And I was having pain in my lower back. I was having pain that would shoot down, and numbness that would shoot down my legs, different things. I think if you listen to my other podcast, Martial Heart, you probably heard all about it, peripheral artery disease. But they made me jump through all sorts of hoops and try everything else before figuring out what the problem actually was. So I had to go through physical therapy, it did nothing except make the condition worse. But we finally, after months of evaluating this and trying to figure it out, we finally, had the proper testing done to figure out that it was peripheral artery disease that was causing it. And you can probably hear the dog barking. I have no idea what she's barking about. She's a lunatic. But she's probably just barking at something outside, like the mailman, like a typical dog sort of stuff. But I can kind of sympathize. Insurance providers don't like shelling out the money to get proper treatment for you. Now, I will say that the insurance we're on now, much better than insurance we've had in the past. No pushback whatsoever on anything that myself or anybody in the family has had to do. So it's been pretty good the last few years. So I have no complaint. But we sort of have a premium package, and most Americans are not going to have that. So we're very fortunate to have it. And it's provided by my wife's employer, which is the government. So we're the fortunate ones who have that. And we haven't gotten any sort of pushback. They've been really excellent with us. And I'm not going to tell you who it is or anything, because I don't want people to take it as an endorsement because I have no idea if your experiences would be similar. I have no idea. Maybe not. But ours has been pretty positive with that. And so going through, I had a heart attack like 4 months ago. And so going through all of that treatment and cardiac rehab and all of that, everything that I've needed to do was just, it was boom, 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 boom. It was handled immediately. And the same thing for other situations that have occurred recently. The response was immediate. Whatever needs to be done, just do it. Let's go. Come on, let's hurry up and get this treated. And that's been very good. But experiences with past insurers and things like that, no, nothing like that at all. So I can sympathize with people who have problems and blame their insurers, their insurance providers for those things, because a lot of times they are to blame. They like to tell the doctors how to treat the patients, and the doctor is saying, no, obviously it's this. And the insurance provider is saying, no, we want you to check for this instead. And the doctor can say, no, it's this, but you need to send them for physical therapy. No, it's this. So a lot of doctors are not happy with that either. And in fact, the guy who fixed my knee finally retired soon after that, because with what he blamed it on Obamacare, with giving the government and the insurance providers the power to tell doctors how to treat the patients. And he completely disagreed with that. So he said, screw it, I'm out, I'm retiring. I'm not going to have somebody tell me how to treat my patients. So screw them, I'm out of here. And it has really, I mean, you can say what you want about Obamacare. Oh, we're providing insurance to people who couldn't afford it otherwise and all that. That's fine. That's great. Don't care. Wonderful. But you really, really did screw up the healthcare system. And none of it has been good. None of it. And doctors and patients and the media and politicians and every single person who has to deal with it is unhappy. Nothing good has come of it, except that you provided some really crappy insurance to people who needed insurance. And so you did that wrong too. You tried to help people and you couldn't even do that right. And you screwed it up for everybody. So that's how I feel about it. And the decision that it was a tax and therefore it was legal for them to do that was a completely wrong decision by the Supreme Court. Not a tax. So it's actually unconstitutional. And it'll probably get overturned eventually because their decision was wrong, absolutely wrong. So I don't expect it's going to stand forever, but that's a whole other show. We can have discussing Supreme Court decisions as a whole new podcast, and we're not going to do that. So was Luigi's motivation for this crime the fact that he was having to deal with insurance providers and not being, allowed the treatments he needed, or they forced him to suffer long term, or was he still suffering because the treatment they offered him wasn't the proper treatment? Was he addicted to opioids or something because of the pain, which can happen to people. It can legitimately happen, and it's not really their fault. But people with chronic pain can sometimes just become drug addicts as a result. So was it something like that? We don't know. That's all speculation on my part. I don't have any insider knowledge. But it's looking like my suspicions initially are more or less turning out to be correct, that it was a personal issue that he had with the medical industry and insurance providers. We'll have to wait to find out if United Healthcare in particular did something that this guy did not like. So until that happens, I guess there's not much else. The only thing else that came out was the ghost gun thing. The ghost gun. And I hate that term. And so does everybody else involved in the firearm industry and the shooting community and the sportsman community. Because technically there really is no such thing as a ghost gun. It's just a made-up term that politicians or the media came up with. The things they're calling ghost guns are legal for the most part. I mean, most of the time when a politician is holding something up and saying this is a ghost gun, it was something that is legal under U.S. law. And I don't know. It's a whole other topic. That could be a whole other podcast too. But I'm not going to get into it because the gun community is one of those communities that likes to eat their own, just like the veteran community, which I'm a member of. They're really bad at it too. They hate each other and they like to eat their own and they don't stand together. And it's not really a community. So that's why you don't see me doing a whole lot of participating in it, because for the most part, it's bullshit. And the veterans community has a tendency to really shit on each other all the time. And it's pathetic and sad. And I just, for the most part, I refuse to participate in it. I'm a veteran. I'm proud to be a veteran. I'm a member of the VFW and the American Legion. I've never been to a meeting, never been to one of the halls, even for a rib cook-off or anything. I just don't do it. Because my experiences dealing with the veterans community, what we call the veterans community, have not been positive. So I prefer to be a positive person about my experience, and I just don't want to do it. I don't feel like doing it. But the gun community is the same way, and there's the 9mm 45 people. And there's the people who think that their way is the only way, and there's people who think that their level of knowledge is, what should be the minimum, level of knowledge. And they want everybody to be armor level double trained on firearms, and it's all really unnecessary. I went into this, I did a video before about the media always getting it wrong when they describe a firearm. And this was an AK style rifle. He had an AK-47. Well, it was really a shotgun. Or, oh, he had an AR-15. Well, really, it was an AK-47. Because the media was having a lot of trouble catching up on modern technology. And none of this technology is modern, by the way. The AR-15 and the AK are both 70 years old. So, actually, the AK is older than that. But they started to catch up, I don't know, about a decade ago. And there were sad reasons for it, because they were catching up because of their familiarity with these weapons, thanks to mass shooting incidents. And the media was getting better at properly identifying firearms that were seen on the ground or at the scene of a crime and things like that. And people were judging the media, and the gun community was like, oh, yeah, you're calling this an AR-15. It's not an AR-15. It's a this. Well, that thing was a variant of an AR-15. It's literally modeled after an AR-15. Just because it's not specifically an AR-15, no one would have known looking at it at a distance while it laid on the ground. So it's kind of like saying, well, that's not an M16. That's an HK-416. It's the same thing. The operating system internally is a little bit different. One uses a piston system, the other one uses direct impingement gas. Anyway, these dumbasses in the gun community will argue for years over stupid things like that instead of coming together and getting something accomplished. It's the same thing that the government does, the Congress, the Senate, the House. They never get anything accomplished because they argue over the minutia, and they don't ever accomplish any of the big things because they're all stupid and they're all putting on a show. It's just a show that they put on. None of them actually care because they're all just taking their payouts from big business anyway, because they're all crooked. Every single politician is crooked in some way. That's my point. That's my take on the whole thing. And you may not agree with me, but from what I've seen in my 57 years on Earth, every single politician on Earth is crooked. They get into politics because they were crooked in the first place. But that's just my opinion. That's my opinion. But the whole thing with the CEO, assassination. But anyway, the gun. It does appear that it was a finished 80% lower. That's what it looked like to me. People were talking about it was 3D printed and blah, blah, blah. But it had a seam, what I could see from the images I saw that were on the news, and I didn't see very many, but there was a seam running through the middle of it, just like it would if it was like molded, in a mold. And I forget, there's actually a term for that, but it looks like a seam from something that's molded together, two sides of it. And I don't know if that's something that maybe it could have been 3D printed and it was put together like that by the person who built it, or if it was molded, a molded piece of polymer that was an 80% lower, and he finished it himself at home with a drill press and things like that. And for those of you who don't know what an 80% lower is, just go look it up. I'm not going to explain it to anybody. So I didn't see the suppressor. It had the threaded barrel that was on there, but the suppressor wasn't shown in the news images. So I'm not sure what happened to that, if he still had it on him or not. But it doesn't appear to be a ghost gun to me, from what the media and the politicians call a ghost gun. All of them are ghost guns if they don't know where it was purchased, but it's not necessarily true, because there's a whole lot of laws and a whole lot of things that you can do in the United States, and pretty much only in the United States and some mountain villages in Afghanistan. That's the only place in the world you can do them. Actually, that would be Pakistan. In the Waziristan area, the border between Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the tribal regions. Anyhow, they hammer out AK-47s in tents up there and sell them, and other firearms. So, but there are certain laws that allow you to do certain things, and at this point, we don't know if this person did anything illegal as far as the firearm was concerned, other than he killed someone with it. But the way the firearm was manufactured and the components that it had on it, we don't know yet if they were legal or illegal. The way he used them was illegal. His transportation of them was illegal. His possession of them in certain areas, like in the state of New York and New York City and things like that, were illegal. But the manufacturer, how he acquired the firearm, no one actually knows yet. So we don't know if that was done illegally. I'm assuming there might have been some shenanigans involved. But I'm not calling it a 3D printed, gun yet, because that's not what it looked like to me. But I don't know. I'm not going to trust any 3D printed gun. I'm sure they've gotten a lot better in the last few years, but I don't know. Somebody else will have to test that and figure it out. But we'll see. That's one of the things. It's one of the mysteries that remains. We've got to figure out, where all that came from and where he gained the knowledge, which is not hard. So don't get caught up in the whole, you had to be trained to know. There's a thing called the internet that will teach you everything you want to know. And anyhow, we'll just leave that at that for now, and we'll wait until we have some actual information. But I thought it was interesting, the medical condition that even in the article says that delays in treatment are often common. So we'll see if that's what happened to him. Maybe he had to suffer for a long time, and he was still pissed off about it. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. And I'll keep checking every couple of days to see if I find any new articles with more information in them. But until then, take care of yourselves and keep your eye on the news, and look for those drones over New Jersey, too. Airplanes and helicopters over New Jersey. They're everywhere. So take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Really Just Stop with your host, Ross. Make sure to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss a dose of some common sense.